What a week. It is hot as Hades here. It has been anywhere from, 90 degrees to 105 degrees, and there doesn't seem to be any relief in sight. It is definitely a late summer, and I am feeling every bit of it. But things are great. We have podcasts. I finished my laundry. My house is nice and clean. I'm ready for the weekend. What is there really to complain about? I mean, you could be Jax. You could be Jax in part 2 of the Valley Reunion. He was a mess, you guys. 156 days sober, he says. But then he goes on to say, hey, drugs and alcohol effed up my life. Yeah, they did. Jax says he's confused. He keeps calling and DMing Brittany or texting her from time to time, toying with the idea of them getting back together. And Brittany chimes in and says, do you know how difficult and confusing that is for me? I think she truly, truly loves him. And in other news, is it me or did Bravo just want to make sure they covered their ass and we heard from Jax's mouth directly that nobody in production knew anything about Jax's cocaine use prior to him admitting it? It just seemed like that clip of Alex and him in the podcast, it just seemed misplaced or ill-placed, which meant it felt forced to me. So then Jax goes on to admit that he just loved doing drugs and alcohol. He says, I fucking loved doing cocaine. Well, at least he's honest about it. Brittany admits after Jax kind of reels her in saying, but I wasn't the only one, and so on and so forth, that she did try cocaine and that she doesn't do it. She did it a few times, but that's not her thing. And then we find out that Brittany, I mean, we already knew this, you guys, but she says it, that she protected him for many, many years. And she says her biggest fear was finding him in the bathroom dead one day. That's how bad it was. So Andy points out that this is the most accountability that Jax has ever taken. But Brittany feels that it might be performative, and she says that that's what scares her. Then we move on and we ask why Jax was always, wreaking havoc. And he said he missed being involved with the group, and that he was really, really hurt, in particular when he wasn't invited to Kristen's baby shower. He says, we've known each other for over 20 years. And she tells him, well, start treating her right and I'll treat you right. Jax is trying to have a moment where he is apologetic and he is telling everybody else how shitty he feels about what he's done, but he can't look Brittany in the eye. And she calls him out and says, he hasn't looked me in the eye since we got here. And Jax gets pretty pissed, but he does say, I can't look you in the eye because I'm ashamed of who I am. So is this narcissism working overtime? Because a real narcissist knows exactly what to say in this situation, and that is the perfect sentence. Or are we actually having some growth from Mr. Jax? Now, keep in mind, at this point, we don't yet know that Jax has been put on pause. I'm going to call it getting fired because it makes me feel better. It makes me feel like Jax is finally being held accountable. And when you say put on pause, it seems a little innocent. And I know that there is a chance that he will come back. And that's fine if he has, a rebirth. But for right now, I just want to feel good in saying that I think that at this point, he hadn't been fired yet. And so we have to take with a grain of salt what he's saying and if he is dancing as fast as he can to save his job. Jax, when asked, cannot say that he's still in love with Brittany. He gets super emotional. He wants to move on from the question and talk about something else. And he breaks down. But everything all over his face says he is truly still in love with her. And so when Andy asked Brittany the same question, she said, it's very hard to leave someone when you still have love for them. But Jax, you didn't fight for me at all. And I don't think that she's wrong about that. Jesse, at one point, the camera pans to him, and it's right at the time that they're talking about how it's really hard to break up with someone that you're still in love with. And the look on his face said a lot to me as well. Go back and look at it and tell me if I'm imagining things. I don't know if my prediction that these two will end up somehow back in the mix with one another, I don't know if that's really correct or accurate anymore, but I still stand by my claim that there is still love for sure from Jesse to Michelle. Andy discusses Cruz and his autism diagnosis. And Brittany's happy that we're switching gears because she says she's getting mad. She tells us Cruz was talking until right around his second birthday. And he almost stopped speaking completely. And then she said he started rooting, and also just she kind of had a feeling. So she said she wanted to be public with the diagnosis because she wanted to advocate and raise awareness because these years in a child on the spectrum are really, really important, because if you get the right tools in place, it can change the course of their life. And I 100% definitely agree with her. She goes on to tell us that she had to do all of this basically by herself because it was right after Jax was in rehab. And so that's when she kind of started pursuing seeking a diagnosis. Jax chimes in to tell us that he thinks that Cruz is the one thing that he's done right. And it's in reference to the comment that Brittany made that he's perfect just the way he is. And I agree. I think Cruz is perfect just the way he is. Well, Kristen has to go pee. And she's pissed because she says she's been whispering into the microphone telling them that they need to let her go pee when she has to go pee. So she just gets up and they just kind of keep filming and pretend that that just didn't happen. And then we talk about Jesse and Michelle's affairs. Well, Jesse tells us he hates cheaters, but Michelle gets pissed off and says, oh, really? Then why were you dating a married person literally the day after I asked you for a divorce? And he kind of ignores it a little. And then Michelle does admit that she had kissed and dated somebody else, but it was just one date and it was by no means a boyfriend. And I guess at this point, she's admitted twice, maybe 3 times that I can remember, to having cheated during the marriage. So I'm not really sure what more Jesse wants at this point. But when it comes back to who this person is, Michelle says, you know who it is. It starts with an A. And he says, my ex-girlfriend who hasn't been married for 25 years. So I don't know what's up with that story, but there's more to it, I think. And then Zack is confronted about his relationship with Janet. And even Luke thinks he talks about her too much and that it's because they think he's jealous. Janet says she's just a better friend. Is there a problem with that? Like, really? Brittany says she told Zack how bad what he did was, but she still loves him. And so she sees Zack starting to get emotional, and she kind of tries to take a couple of steps backward in what she was going to say as far as, hey, I kind of told you that you went off the rails. And we're talking about the whole her needing her space from Zack when he made the comment about Janet when she was pregnant. And this is an old comment and an old situation, and they filled for an entire season. So I'm a little confused as to why we're still talking about it. But I don't know, maybe that's why we had a 3-part reunion. Then Jax apologizes to Danny for saying he was going to go after him in season 2. Danny starts to get kind of emotional about it. Nia's not emotional at all, except I guess anger is an emotion. She's pissed. And she starts kind of laying into Jax and telling him how bad it was what he did. And, you know, he says, Jax just kind of says, like, I'm trying to apologize. You know, I really love you. I really know that we probably can't be friends now, but I hope one day. And Danny said, I loved you too, and I wanted us to be friends. So Danny definitely took it a certain sort of a way that Jax decided he was going to come after him. So now we know that the alcohol or the Danny has a problem narrative was planned from the very beginning and in fact announced to Danny by Jax. So it explains why he behaved in certain ways if you look back throughout the season, because he knew that a certain narrative was being painted, and I think he was trying to counter it. And honestly, as a father of now 4 under 4, I wouldn't blame him. Nobody wants to look bad, and nobody wants all this craziness out there about them when it comes to who they are and what they do when they're family men, and especially if they are in the public eye like he is. Not only is he on this show, but, you know, he was a childhood actor. He's still currently a working actor in Hollywood. So let's just leave him alone. Well, then we talked to Danny about Pantrygate. You know what Pantrygate is, when he was drinking the shots in the pantry in Santa Barbara. And he said he was mainly trying to hide from the cameras. Again, because he knew about the narrative that was being spun by Jax. Nia says she's not always happy with how he behaves, but they do always communicate and resolve it after. And so, in my opinion, this is just a healthy marriage where you don't bash your partner in front of everybody. You don't cause scenes when you go places. You instead make a mental note, make a quiet, if not pleasant escape, and discuss it later. Go to therapy. You know, hash it out. Decide to agree to disagree. Agree that you're going to get help. Do whatever. It doesn't have to be in front of everybody. You do not owe anybody a public viewing of your relationship with your partner. Do we like Danny Darko or Dark Side Danny better? Okay, I don't like either. And I also didn't like that Janet was trying to be flip when confronted with it. But I'm starting to understand her sense of humor. She just has a real deadpan, kind of dry sense of humor. And she's very sarcastic. And if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. And the one thing I'm struggling with is, yes, maybe Kristen is right. And this is not the Janet that she knew before. This girl who's filmed all season. But you guys certainly knew her sense of humor. You knew how she responds to things. You guys have been friends with her for years. And call her a fan. Tell everybody in the world whatever you want about how she ended up on this show. You guys have been friends for a long time. So I don't know how I feel about the fact that everybody's decided to hate Janet this season. And honestly, I don't know how I feel about all of the talk that she may not be back. I don't think it's true. I think it's all speculation. But when I really sit back and think about it, it's becoming harder and harder for me to see where she can fit in with the group if there's going to be this amount of contempt against her. And I really don't want to see the Jason that we're seeing at this reunion in particular. I don't want to see him for a whole season. I really like Jason, and I am not liking his behavior on this reunion. I get it. He wants to have his wife's back. It's very admirable, but it's just not, it's not playing to the camera as well. So I'd rather see the other Jason that we all knew and loved. And we get into the Halloween incident. Of course we do. You think we're going to let it go? It's the reunion. You know, with Jasmine and Melissa and Danny Darko. Well, Jasmine said she struggled because she felt that if it had happened to any other couple, there would have been a totally different way of handling it. And the group would have had more compassion. And I agree with her. But she does thank Jason for being there for her. And instead of just saying you're welcome, Jason uses the opportunity to go off on Danny. He says, if I did what you did, I would spend the rest of my life apologizing. And it gets a little muddy, and Nia points out that she doesn't feel like they're understanding one another. And I agree with Nia. Well, the show comes to an end with Jason calling Danny a clown and a douchebag, and he gets pretty activated, which kind of triggers Nia, who starts getting worked up and is kind of afraid that at one point she may go into labor. So Janet wants to chime in and make sure that she gets this out, and that is that what Danny did has happened several other times. Oh boy, Danny and Nia both pop off and accuse her of lying and say, and you have a reputation for lying. So I don't know where this will all end, but we have one more episode. I liked episode 1 more. Episode 2 was a little Jax and Brittany heavy for me. And honestly, this whole reunion is, I get that it was this largest and I guess most important story arc of the season, but I just feel like there are a lot of other things to talk about, in my opinion. I can spend a lot of time telling you what those things are, but it doesn't matter because they haven't covered them yet. So we'll see if they cover them next week. Next week is the last of the reunion, episode 3. And I heard that there may be filming getting underway very, very soon here. So we will see. We also have all but confirmed that Sheena and Brock will be on the Valley next season. And there's grumblings and mumblings about Lala and her pod joining the Valley. I haven't heard anything concrete, but there are definitely rumors. And the latest rumor is that Tom Sandoval and Victoria Robinson have been screen tested to join the group as well. So we'll see if any of this pans out. That's a really, really huge cast. So I feel like some people would have to go in order for that to happen. And I don't see Jasmine and Melissa going because I think that we're hoping to see their wedding. I don't know about Zack and Benji. I'm not sure what their future holds. But he does bring a good amount of conflict that, it makes for a watchable show. So we don't know what his, future holds. And then who knows what's happening with Michelle now that she broke up with Aaron. And Jesse, we don't know if he'll be filming, but we heard that if he is, Lacey may or may not be filming. So there's a lot of speculation out there. Nothing really solid. If I get anything that is concrete, I, of course, will bring it to you. And that's how that one ended. Let's move right on into The Real Housewives of Miami, episode 9. This season continues to give. It does. But here's the thing. The episode that I did recapping, I think it was like episodes 3 to 8, in which we meet Stephanie, the new housewife, I spent a good amount of time scolding her for leading with her money. And when I started watching episode 9, I had an epiphany and I realized that I'm not going to do that anymore. Instead of coming after her for leading with her money, I'm just going to lean into it because it's kind of part of what I love about the Housewives franchise. The opulence of it all. Remember the old Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Those were the days, my friends. And even Orange County and even New York, if I have to say so, they all were super opulent. And in order to be a housewife, you had to be at a certain caliber. So for me, this is reminiscent of that. And I think the reason that it's so blatant is because that's not what Housewives is anymore. Yeah, these people are better off than most, but we all hear about it. There's a bunch of fake Birkins and Chanels and lab created diamonds or even cubic zirconias. Cartier bracelets that were bought, in the underground, and people are wearing them on these shows. So it's really hard to tell who is legitimately wealthy and well-to-do and who is posturing. Doggy brothels in Miami. Are you kidding me? This cracked me up. Adriana has her little doggy, and well, she is getting ready to get him fixed, but she wants him to have one trip to paradise before she does. So she takes him to a doggy brothel where he meets a female doggy, and well, the doggy got his cookie. It was a hysterical scene, and it made me realize Adriana doesn't have much of a storyline. If this is the lengths we are going to, can we focus a little bit more on something else with her? Can we see Mr. Frenchman, or was he just a purchase for episode 1? Yep, that was my out loud voice. Sorry guys, it's Friday. I get a little persnickety. Adriana says she's not proud of her behavior on the yacht. Well, good, because we weren't proud of you either. And Lisa says that she feels like Adriana is now almost being made the outsider. Yeah, that's what I said. Marisol tells Julia that Adriana's behavior was unspeakable. And Adriana is older than her anyway. She should know better. And she doesn't understand why she resorted to body shaming. Marisol says, I'm happy with the way I look. I don't understand why she had to do that. Well, alcohol. That's the answer, Marisol. Alcohol and resentment. Marisol tells Julia that Guerdy is in the group and will continue to be, which is true. So she's a little concerned about all of the bickering going on. Well, Julia says that the ship has sailed on the friendship, but hopefully they can be civil to one another. Well, I hope so too. Otherwise, somebody's going. And I have a feeling that it's going to be Julia. And I told you guys before, I'm good with that. I'm ready to see them go. I love the 2 little kids, but I don't know if this is a storyline that I want to follow year after year. Julia's awkward. I feel like she's trying way too hard. And I'm still kind of pissed at Martina about her comments on Instagram. So I just don't know if I want her on my screen or if I want them on my screen week to week. And in my opinion, Marisol deserves a mojito way more than Julia does. So that's my opinion on that situation. Let's move on. Marisol tells Stephanie that she wants to do something nice for Alexia because she wants to get her away and distract her from everything that she's going through. So they decide to go to Seville, Spain. Oh, Sevilla. That is definitely one of the things on my list when we go back. So you know who you are that is listening. Let's put that one on the list for Spain for our Spain and Greece trip that we could get to hopefully next year sometime. That's what I'm hoping to do. Not on a cruise, just to go visit Spain, just to go visit Greece. And listen, if we could spend enough time there, I'd also love to go to Italy. But I think that they're separate trips. I think that there's way too much to do to get all 3 countries covered in one vacation. Just my opinion. Guerdy FaceTimes with Dr. Jackie from Married to Medicine. And I love Dr. Jackie. She just lifts Guerdy up so beautifully in this scene. Well, Guerdy wants a little bit of advice on how to regain some of her desire for intimacy. She says that since her battle, she has struggled with that. And Jackie just floors her with buckets of love and support and compliments, telling her how she's an inspiration to watch and how everybody is so proud of her. Well, this just sends Guerdy over the top, and she's just very, I don't want to say fragile, but very easily led to emote these days. She goes from no to you're going to make me cry. And next thing you know, she's crying, and she's incredibly touched by the sentiment. I was too. I thought it was a very sweet thing, the way Dr. Jackie handled it. And then she agreed she'd send her a little care package to help in the intimacy department. And so, for those of you who don't know, just as a quick aside, Dr. Jackie from Married to Medicine is an OB/GYN that also has had 2 battles with breast cancer. So, they have a lot of things in common, and in my opinion, gives her the best advice ever when she tells her to thank her haters. And that is great advice. Thank your haters, folks. Just thank your haters, because you gotta just look at things from the other perspective. And instead of using all of that energy for hatred, lift it up in thanks and grace and see how your life changes. I think that was the best medicine anyone could offer to Guerdy, and Dr. Jackie nailed it. Masood and Stephanie meet Martina and Julia for a lovely city view dinner. Did you guys see the view? Gosh, it's gorgeous. Maybe I do want to go to Miami. I know I've said it here before on the podcast that Miami is not on my list, mainly because of the weather. But gosh, there are a lot of really cool restaurants. It looks like the nightlife is a blast. There's a lot of beach and waterfront living, and I love that. And then you get the gorgeous high rises with all the beautiful views. What's not to like? Maybe Miami will be in the future. You know that if it is, I'll cover it on the podcast, because we are also a travel podcast. Martina and Masood really bonded. For some reason, those two really hit it off, and they're having their very own conversation while Julia and Stephanie are chatting on the other end of the table. And Martina tells us that she's 68 years old with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Holy moly. That's nuts. That means that she will be 86 when the baby is 18. Oh my gosh. Well, God bless them for taking these children and giving them a better life. I'm not going to judge. I just know it wouldn't be for me. We find that Julia has a little brother, and Stephanie has twin sister siblings. Well, Julia admits that they're struggling with their older daughters because of the new family dynamic. So this is new. This is new information that we hadn't heard yet. You know that Julia has 2 older daughters. They're grown, and we saw them, I think the first season that Julia was on the show, we saw a little bit of them before they went off to like boarding school or college. And apparently these 2 girls did not take well to the adoption. The new family dynamic is causing stress and tension. They're not speaking very much at all. And they were kind of upset and taken aback by the fact that they weren't looped in to the whole process. You know, I would feel a certain sort of a way too. Can you imagine if all of a sudden I just told my kids that I just adopted 1 and 2-year-old kids without even mentioning that it might happen or our family's growing? I think that there might have been some ulterior motive for not saying this. And it was more of a let's ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Now, granted, you don't have to check with your grown children if you want to adopt more children, but it almost seems like a family decision to me, to a certain degree. It's going to change the course of the entire family, so at least a conversation, for Pete's sakes. Marisol has a preppy luncheon, and part of the reason for her luncheon is just to troll the girls and see who understands the theme and what people will show up wearing. Well, Guerdy shows up with this huge box, and it's one of those beverage making machines, which, by the way, I would love to have. And it was, she brings it as a wedding gift. Well, Marisol tells us in the confessional that she found out that Lisa had given it to Guerdy, and Guerdy regifted it to Marisol. We could have a conversation about regifting another time. I think when it's a huge gift like this, it's a little bit tacky, just my opinion. Let's leave it there, because I have mixed emotions when it comes to regifting. Adriana nails the look, and she walks in with her Harvard shirt with the sweater over her shoulders, and she wants to have a chat with Marisol to try to make up. So they head outside and they go to chat, and she apologizes and she tells her that, she really drank too much. And Marisol reminds her that alcohol is sometimes a truth serum. So maybe that's how she really felt about her. But in the end, they're both just tired of bickering. So it seems like they decide, let's get along since everybody else in this group is fighting. Well, they hug and they go back in, and Adriana proudly announces that she and Marisol have made up. Yay, the group claps and we move on. Lisa shows up looking like she got the wrong memo about what to wear. It looked like she got invited to like a hoochie mama party or something, but definitely not a preppy party. I don't know what preppy look she was talking about. Once all the girls get there, Marisol says that the reason she wanted to have the luncheon is because she is very heavily leaned into her mom's side of the family and wanted to share the fact that her dad was from Connecticut and that she has a naturally very preppy side to her. And I saw that. It comes across, Marisol, in the way you dress, in the way you conduct yourself, in some of the things that bother you. It comes across a little WASP-Y girl, I ain't gonna lie. Adriana commandeers the conversation so that we can talk about the fact that she is getting her master's at Harvard. Listen, girl, congratulations to you. Adriana's like 60 something, maybe 61. I don't remember, and I'm not going to stop to look it up. But kudos to her for pursuing an education and a master's at that. Well, of course, Larsa wants to shade her, saying anybody can take an online course. All you have to do is pay for it. Okay, Larsa, send me the copy of your degree from Harvard, online or otherwise. In fact, send me a copy of your master's degree from anywhere. I don't care if it's Grand Canyon University. You spend an awful lot of time standing in judgment, and all that time you spend looking in the mirror, you think you'd look inside a little. This girl just annoys me to no end. I guess this is another Bravo Leb I'll never have on the podcast, but I have to be true to myself. Marisol made all the food for the luncheon, and it actually looks very nice. She did a beautiful job, and everybody seems to be enjoying the afternoon. Then Guerdy asked Julia to step aside for a chat. She points out that she thought that they had agreed to move on. But Julia says, hey, I only wanted the life coach's opinion because I was hurt too. Guerdy apologizes about the behavior at the celebration of life party. She says she felt cornered and she did not like the way she handled things. And she feels as though everybody is ganged up against her, and she doesn't know why, and she doesn't know when things went so sideways. I don't either, except for if you look at the evolution of Guerdy's behavior, she got more and more, I don't want to say aggressive because I hate when that's the first word people choose to use for a strong Black woman. But she was certainly more assertive and outspoken than she was when she first came on the show. So maybe that explains why people had a shift in their energy towards her. Well, the good news is that Guerdy and Julia were able to hug it out and make up for the moment as well. So everybody's happy for the fresh start, including me. I'm so glad. Let's see how long it holds. Stephanie announces that she will fly the girls from Sevilla to Marbella. So she's taking her PJ, her private jet, and I guess it can only accommodate 4 people on a transatlantic flight. But it will be stationed in Seville when they get there. And there is a 3-hour drive to Marbella where Marisol wants to take everybody. But Stephanie says, why would we drive when we could fly? So she offers to fly all the girls from Sevilla to Marbella. And that'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch. We'll see what happens. Then Stephanie pulls Alexia for a chat. And it literally is a conversation of the Rottweiler versus the Chihuahua. Stephanie's not backing down. She tells Alexia it's not going to go well if she continues belittling her. So they chat a little bit longer, and then they agree to extend an olive branch to one another. And then in a weird kind of sort of turn of events, I'm with Alexia here. It was random as fuck. Stephanie invites Alexia to go on the private jet for the long flight. Now, apparently she had invited Marisol, but Marisol said, no, I can't leave Alexia behind. So then she extended the offer to Alexia, and Alexia said the same thing. I appreciate the invitation, but I won't go without Marisol. She tried to point out that Marisol weighs very little and maybe we can squeeze her in, but Stephanie wasn't budging. So alas, they will not be on the private jet. Stephanie invites Adriana, mainly because she wants to get to know her better. Stephanie tells us that it's between Kiki, who she knows well and would enjoy inviting, and Adriana, who she doesn't know very well and could use the opportunity to get to know. Kiki does the very noble thing and says, you know what? Why don't you take Adriana? It would be a good opportunity for you to get to know one another. Kiki's a bigger person than me, honey. If I had an opportunity to take a transatlantic flight on a private jet, I would jump at it. I guess all this kindness is getting to Alexia because we look at her, and as the episode is ending, she starts to get all teary-eyed, and Marisol says that the trip is about Alexia and that she would never leave her, and I think it's just that she's touched by the love that Marisol has for her. And conversely, Adriana's triggered by this love because she wants to know why Julia doesn't have her back like this. And we see that next week there'll be a lot more of that. So next week we're in Sevilla, Spain, and I can't wait to cover it because I love Spain and it looks like it's going to be beautiful. So we'll see what happens with this trip. I hope it turns out to be a good one. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's short and sweet, but I got y'all caught up. I hope you have a great weekend. I've enjoyed this week, even though it has been hot and busy. I hope you have had a great week as well. I look forward to talking to you again soon, and I'll be here living on the verge. Happy Friday!